Hey, everybody. It's Beverly, your instructor. I just wanted to take a few minutes today and talk a little bit about designing interventions for your risk reduction program. There's some information that I placed on the course site about um, different levels of prevention as well as the 5 E's of prevention. And I just wanted to review that information. It's important information and it's information that we'll use in other courses. And I think that it is one of those that bears discussing, certainly in this format. When we're talking about levels of prevention, there's 3 different levels of prevention. There's primary, secondary, and tertiary. And if you're familiar at all with William Haddon's matrix, he was a big doctor as far as injury prevention and injury control. And he designed a matrix that discussed pre-event, event, and post-event measures. There was some other columns there, but just focusing on those 3, that's where we come up with primary, secondary, and tertiary. Your primary prevention, your primary risk reduction measures are true risk reduction, meaning that they prevent the event from happening. They stop it completely. People don't. We a lot of times see it through education where people don't use their space heaters too close to combustibles, or people do lock their doors at night. People do wear their seatbelts. They do keep matches and lighters away from children. All of those are primary prevention measures. We will never see that event, and that's what we want. That is true prevention, true risk reduction. We know, however, that that's not always going to be the case, and that we're still going to have events that we need to respond to. We're always going to be in business. Don't ever let yourself think that you're going to be out of business. So we have primary risk reduction strategies, and then there's secondary risk reduction strategies. And to me, this is mitigation. This is where we minimize the impact of the event, whether it is a car crash. When a car crash occurs, they're wearing their seatbelt, so it minimizes the impact. Someone has a smoke alarm in their home. It doesn't stop the fire from happening, but it does alert them to the fire so that they're able to evacuate. They're safe. They're able to call the fire department with a quicker response. And so it minimizes the damage that is done. So secondary are those that happen during the event that to minimize or mitigate the damage or the loss. And then our tertiary, this is the after the event kind of activities. These can be things such as a well-planned recovery agency in the community, such as the Red Cross, that is there, whether it's a fire, whether it's a disaster, it's getting, even having insurance is considered tertiary risk reduction. We encourage people to have renter's insurance, vehicle insurance, and all that helps the recovery effort for that individual that has been affected. So our pre-event is our primary prevention, our primary risk reduction initiatives that hopefully we won't have that event at all. And then there's our secondary, which is during the event, how we minimize that, rapid response, well-trained responders, and even engineering or education that takes place for the event that minimizes the damage. And then tertiary that helps in the recovery. A well-placed burn unit at a hospital and rapid transport to that facility is another example of tertiary. So those are the 3 levels. And then when we're thinking about designing interventions, we're talking about 5 different ones. We call them the 5 E's of prevention. There originally was 3, and it kind of developed over the years and increased to 5. I know one of your authors throws another one in, but these are the 5 that are the most recognized, let's say, especially in publications. You'll see all 5, and these are economic incentive. It is education, enforcement, engineering, and emergency response. All of these 5 things have to work together in order to have a successful risk reduction program. When we're thinking about emergency response, again, this is well-trained personnel. They have the equipment that they need to respond to the emergencies that they are responding to. They are well-placed stations, whether it's police or fire. The police, law enforcement, a lot of times has neighborhood stations, and they may be placed in a neighborhood that's a high-risk neighborhood so that they can get, so they're right there in the middle of it. And again, that's that type of emergency response. Having the right equipment, the right training, the right personnel for the particular incident to which they are responding. All of that indicates emergency response. Economic incentive. This can be negative. It can be positive. You get a break on your homeowner's insurance if you have residential sprinklers installed, or maybe a burglar alarm or a fire alarm system installed. Smoke alarms, just your simple smoke alarm. You get an incentive, a break on your insurance. You get a break on your car insurance for having taken driver's ed or a driver safety training class. You can also have negative incentives, such as you may get a citation if you're not wearing your seatbelt when you're driving down the road, or when you're inspected and you don't meet the code, the proper code, then you can be cited. And again, that is a bit of a negative economic incentive. So we've got emergency response, economic incentive. Then we have engineering, and we see so much these days. This is our fire protection systems that are in buildings, smoke alarms, sprinkler systems, airbags in vehicles, seat belts in vehicles, child passenger safety, all kinds of things that come about as in the engineering realm that can help us to be safer. And then enforcement, of course. You can put the engineering in, but someone has to come along and enforce that it is operational. Think about the child passenger safety seat. If it's not installed correctly or not being used correctly, then someone needs to enforce that and let people know that it's not being used in a correct fashion. If exits are blocked and they refuse to unblock them, then that may be the time for that citation. So we've got to have that enforcement piece to make people do what they're going to do. And then education. A lot of times we think that education is enough. I've been doing this for a long, long time. And when I first started out, I thought, I'm going to tell them what to do, and they're going to do it. And guess what? I was wrong. A lot of times people don't do what you, the expert, tell them to do for a variety of reasons. Maybe they don't understand how. Maybe they don't feel like they have the economic means to do it, or they don't have the motivation to do it. It's a change for them. So education provides awareness. It provides information on the correct way to do things, but alone it's not enough. It is the foundation for all the others. You can't just, if you give a family, a parent, a child safety seat and say, here you go, that's not enough. We have to educate them on how to install it, how to properly put the child in the seat, when to change them to forward facing, all that kind of stuff. So we have to have that education piece to go along with the enforcement, to go along with the engineering. But education in and of itself is a pretty weak initiative, but it must accompany all the other initiatives. So our goal when we're designing risk reduction interventions, our goal is to incorporate as many of those as we can. It may be looking at your city or county ordinance to increase the age for child safety seats, or I'm kind of talking off my head here, but or to make it where people have to have residential sprinklers in new construction or something along those lines. So it could be a policy change. It could be education. It can be all of these together. That's what we want to see. We want to see all of these E's working together. Sometimes it's hard to find all 5 for the particular initiative that you're working for, or to address the particular risk that you are focusing on. But try to get as many of them as you can, because the more of those that you have, the more successful your risk reduction efforts are going to be. So remember the 3 levels: primary, secondary, tertiary. And remember our 5 E's: economic incentive, emergency response, education, engineering, and enforcement. And you should be okay. Thanks so much for joining me today for this little mini lecture. Let me know if you have any questions or need some further clarification.